Okay, before we close, we have the founder of Silicon Compilers Inc. Do you want to say a few words about your company now? Okay. Then Roy, go for it. Roy, you're on.
A quick return to simplicity in the early days. 60s and 70s and into the mid-80s, that was the height of the Cold War and then the tapering off. It was the height of the space program. It was the height of the space transportation system. In addition to NSF, certain other three-letter agencies poured billions into development of small foundries, outputs of 100 to 300 was a big run, developed their own design team, all of the rest. Did any of that flow forward into the kinds of things that are happening today?
You're referring to government agencies, Roy?
Huh?
Yeah. Government agencies?
I'm only talking government. It's
Got it.
billions reported, and Mr. Sutherland was a key part of a lot of that.
Well, one of those was the VISIC program that yielded VHDL. That still has a number of lovers, not one of them, but it's a language.
Products, right?
Sooner or later, that thing will be dead. But it was certainly a very potent effort, and I think it was great that it was done because it demonstrated that you could do things with languages, and it had a lot of great intent, even if the language ultimately was too heavy for efficiency. And you refer to a time that I think is absolutely crucial for the United States, which is a time after the 60s, where following Sputnik, the space program was launched. And simultaneously with the space program, and I think that is the much bigger impact, it said, you know, science and engineering is absolutely essential. And it was taught in schools, and kids wanted to be part of that. And I think it unleashed the dominance of the United States from a R&D point of view, from a top schools point of view in the world to this day. Then it became very successful in many ways, and it was not necessary to have all that much. There was an effort in the, I guess it's late 80s, where there was a very strong counterforce in Japan in semiconductors. The United States,
especially memories.
Especially memories, and there were all kinds of accusations of dumping and so on. But there was a counter effort by the United States to essentially allow a consortium investing in semiconductor technology development that did have some impact. I think that this country is insufficiently equipped today in its investments in deep technology. I think there are two examples that I think are remarkable. One is the investment in the decoding of the human DNA. And if you look at that, I think it was 2002 that the two different decoding teams simultaneously announced that they had done the human DNA. And today you see an enormous amount of impact on that, on the very notion of how we understand human life, specialized medicine, and so on. Most recently, the Obama administration put an effort in place to do massive brain research. There is no doubt in my mind that that is going to be a fabulously important investment, because if nothing else, our field is the field that's going to try to mimic the brain every which way we can and connect to it. Just this morning on the news, some kid born with hearing problems had an implant directly essentially connected to the brain. Already a few years ago, direct connections to the brain makes it possible for people to move an artificial hand with their thoughts. This is just the beginning of incredible opportunities, but the complexity of these problems is so large that it does require a massive community investment. For a long time, the United States has desisted from that on the basic belief that, you know, all government is evil and overdone, and yet big organizations are necessary, and we see the impact that China is having right now with its massive investments. So I think the time you're pointing to is a fabulously positive example that has had many, many impacts. And although our companies may not have individually benefited from it greatly, we absolutely benefited by virtue of getting the best students.
Why isn't the government working more on technology research for medical electronics than on snooping in NSA programs?
Well, so going back to your comments earlier, you know, for 20 years or more, the military, 30 years, was the real driver in semiconductor technology. The first use of integrated circuits was in the Apollo guidance computers and the Minuteman missiles. And so the reliability improvements that they forced upon the industry were critical for the success of the business. And for those of us who grew up even in the business in the 80s and so forth, military was the high-end customer. They were the driver. They didn't have a lot of volume, but they wanted the very best in technology. And in fact, LSI Logic, not so much VLSI because we didn't focus, but LSI Logic jumped on the military as being a primary customer in the early days of their gate arrays. And the fact that they could turn around small volumes quickly and exactly match the needs of the military, and they made fabulous profits on the basis of those designs, which they did. Subsequently, what's happened, one of the things that's happened in the 80s and 90s is that we've had this huge flip where the military is the laggard and takes the droppings left by the consumer market. The consumer market is driving the technology. Your latest technology, the latest technology in the world is in everybody's pocket. It's right here.
Smartphone.
And you think of every piece of technology that's ever been invented in semiconductors is inside this little box. And every hard software problem that has ever been attempted is inside this one box. And
that's a complete reversal. For
so
and
the military is saying, I give up. They can't get the attention of the major semiconductor companies or anybody. They just take the fallout.